How's it going, everybody? Today I'd like to talk about every trumpet player's favorite topic of discussion, and that is range. Now, range is something that is pretty much demanded of every trumpet player out there right now. It's something that's it's just written for. A lot of composers, a lot of arrangers write very demanding lead trumpet parts, and they're going up to G's, A's, B's, double C's, and that stuff is written. It's not optional. So obviously, as a trumpet player, it can be a little daunting to look at that stuff and be confident with it. So today I'd like to take a moment and share with you guys some of the stuff that I like to do when it comes to better preparing myself to play a lead trumpet part. So one of my favorite things to do as part of my daily warm-up routine are arpeggios. Now, arpeggios are very important for me because it's my way of expanding my range as I'm warming up. Now, a lot of us warm up by playing in the lower register and playing long tones. That's all fine and dandy, except that as a lead trumpet player, you also need to make sure that you're warming up in the upper register. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be playing triple C's right out of the case. For those of you that can, probably like Maynard, I'm sure that was possible. But for us mere mortals, that's not what we're going to do. What I mean by expanding your range in the warm-up is, for example, if you're going to be walking into a rehearsal and you know that some of the music has some high G's and some high A's, then maybe what you want to do as part of your warm-up routine is include some of those notes in there. These arpeggios that I explained earlier are basically going to cover that stuff. What I like to do is I like to do just a simple arpeggio, nothing fancy, nothing articulated, just a simple slur, something like this, for example. There's lots of things that I'm thinking of as I play those arpeggios. I'm thinking of the notes themselves, I'm thinking of accuracy, and I'm thinking of tone. All three things are very important in their own respect. Now, that's a lot of stuff to be thinking about as you're doing these exercises, but they all have a purpose. Now, as far as thinking about the notes, what do you mean by that, you ask? Well, thinking about the notes is exactly what I'm saying. So something that I like to do that helps me with stuff like arpeggios and just overall playing in the upper register is imagining the note itself. Now, that sounds a little crazy, I get it. But it really does help. If you can hear the notes in your mind before you play them, it really does make everything a lot easier. Something very simple like this. So in the example I just played for you guys, I started off on a G sitting on top of the staff, and then I waited a couple of moments and really thought about the next note. And then once I had that note pictured in my mind, I played it. Easier said than done, right? Yeah, I know. But it's going to take some time. This is something that I didn't learn overnight, and it did take a lot of years of patience and perseverance to get to this point. But rest assured, the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Now, once you get comfortable with hearing the notes in your head, you'll start noticing that your chops are going to be set a certain way. And thinking about those notes is actually going to become a lot easier and a lot faster as well. So accuracy starts coming into play. And things like this will start coming into fruition. In that last example, you noticed there was a couple of things going on. On top of the thinking of the notes prior to playing the notes, there's also the physical aspect of the playing, which, as you noticed, as the higher I went, the more air I was taking in, which is another fundamental thing that you need to do as a lead trumpet player. High notes aren't very easy to play if you aren't taking the right breath. Good old blue here isn't the most forgiving at times. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I may not be taking in the right breath. If I'm not taking in the right breath, then the right notes are not coming out. If you noticed in the previous clip, the low notes were played with a lot of ease, and the high notes were played with a lot of ease. The only difference was the amount of air that I was taking in for each note. Low notes don't require as much compression as high notes, so the low notes only need a certain amount of air to make them speak, and to speak with good tone. High notes, however, need a lot of compression and a lot of air. If the air isn't compressed, and there isn't enough air to support, then nothing's really going to come out. Now you might be thinking, whoa, 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 that's a lot of stuff to have to think about just to play a couple of notes. And you might be right. So what do you do in a real world situation? Well, what I like to do at home when I'm practicing is I like to take some familiar piece of music, something like an excerpt or a fancy jazz lick that I came up with, and I like to play that in different octaves, something like this. As you just heard in that previous clip, I played that same lick in 2 different octaves. The second time around, I tried to make sure that I emulated the same style and articulation as I played in the first octave. Now this does a couple of different things for you. It develops the ear, kind of what I talked about earlier with trying to imagine the pitch, except that this time you're also adding in interpreting style and interpreting articulation. We'll talk about style and articulation in a later video, but you can really appreciate how important it is to be able to listen to things prior to playing them in the upper register. That being said, once you've become comfortable with playing your lick, you can then start exploring yet another octave, and another, and another, and another, because apparently everybody can play 8 octaves above the staff. Just a little humor, but realistically, you can go ahead and start your lick as low as you need it to go, and only go as high as you can. Don't force anything, and make sure that you're always relaxing. And eventually, you'll be able to get to something like this. Playing trumpet and playing in the extreme register doesn't have to be a difficult thing. If you just apply some of those principles and some of those fundamentals that we talked about earlier in this video, I think you're going to have a lot of fun in your playing career. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I know I had a lot of fun making it. And if you guys enjoyed it, please make sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys on the next one.